and they solved it, and then they started to get it 5 times more. They know it's been going on for years, but they're waiting for it to get paid.
Jennifer?
You're live.
Okay, we're live. So we're calling the meeting back to order. And we're on to 8.3, third quarter financials.
All right, good morning, council.
Good morning.
So this is the update for the third quarter of the 21-22 fiscal year from a financial perspective. Some highlights of the quarter. As always, we've been posting all the council and CAO quarterly remuneration and expenses on the website for anyone to look at if they so choose. All the tax bills have been issued for the year. Tax sale was delayed again, although technically that wasn't in Q3. It was scheduled for January 11th, and due to COVID restrictions, we had to delay that again.
Yeah.
Currently scheduled for March 29th, I believe. So the way things are going, hopefully we'll be able to get it done, as we've had to reschedule a couple times now. So we've begun work on the draft 5-year capital budget, which you'll see shortly after this, and actually already seen probably in your distributions.
Yeah.
We've been working quite a bit on the 22-23 landfill budget. So using the modeling tool from Grant Thornton, as well as discussions with the finance group and operations group at Valley Waste and internally, and the equipment needs plan. We're working on that one. We're pretty close to done there. Prepared and submitted all provincial reporting requirements. That's the financial information return, the statements of estimates. Nothing back from the province on any of those yet, although a couple are still technically under review, so we'll see how that goes. Financial analyst recruitment work. I can actually tell you that as of yesterday, we had an accepted offer from a successful candidate.
Oh, good.
So we will have our new financial analyst beginning here February 28th, so just a week after next. And I'll send out an email to all of you just to give you the update on who that is and a little bit of information on that. Some metrics for the third quarter, or for the year to date, I suppose. HST returns, 3, 1 for each quarter, all filed on time. CRA payroll remittances, 28 were due, 26 were filed on time. That is an unusual thing for us to be late on any of those. It was unfortunately due to some unexpected temporary staffing issues. We had some people who were not able to work on a short notice for a brief period of time. There were no impact other than the note of late on a couple of submissions. So not expected to be a recurring thing. Similarly, all the WCB remittances were filed on time this year. The water supply loans, we have 6 new loans so far this fiscal year, total of 17 active. That was a new value of $47,357. Total outstanding balance on all these loans is $123,078. As of February 10th, when we put together this information, there was 1.1 million of, that's 12% of total tax bills still outstanding. 72% alone was collected in this Q3. So that is better than the previous year. So we're doing well collecting, we're paying the bills.
Okay.
The priorities for the remainder of the year include preparing the operating budget for next year, the multi-year capital budget finalization, onboarding that financial analyst we're talking about. We'll be implementing the purchase order module and some other pieces of the procurement policy revisions. You should expect to see something specifically on that within the next few weeks coming back to you. T4s were just posted yesterday, so everybody's got their T4s available. I think the hard copies are going out today.
She sent an email during the box.
So everybody can file their taxes.
Yeah. Can't be late at that.
At least you got one more piece of information for that anyway. Some of us have quite a few things to gather up this past year for that. And then the tax sale, which I mentioned already. So from the strategic priorities document, here's some items that relate to my department. The procurement strategy we just discussed, you'll be seeing some stuff later, well, early March. And then further beyond that, some other pieces of it, the P cards, procurement policy review provision. The investment policy was passed last fiscal year. We're still working at preparing the long-term financial forecast for cash flow to enable us to make use of that new investment policy to make better use of the funds that we have in excess of what we need at any given time. That's something that the new analyst will be very, very helpful with preparing. The tax exemption bylaw review, that should be coming back to you some point within this quarter. So by the end of the fiscal year, you'll see the review on that. We've had some work being done to review each of the organizations included in that bylaw to bring back some of the information that has been requested by council in the past. The financial analyst recruitment, I've just updated you on that. Tax sale options report, that's one of the lower priority items, but it is still on the list, and we are still looking at getting some of that information. I understand there are some municipalities around Nova Scotia who have been going with options other than in-person auctions, and so I'll be looking to them to see what their experience with those was, and look at how that may or may not be useful or beneficial for us going forward. And streetlight area rates, so that'll be something that's kind of going to be ongoing. You'll see it as part of the operating budget work this year, and we'll continue those discussions going forward. The forecast for the year. Right now, the forecast as of December 31st shows a year-end surplus in operations of just over $3.2 million. And then there's some more details on that on the following pages.
I've got a question. That's not on here, but I gotta ask this funny. The road maintenance bylaw changes are they forthcoming?
They will be coming. You've given us very specific feedback, so we're prepared to do that. It's just a matter of the resourcing time to get in and actually start crafting the word in there.
Will it get done for the next tax year?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's.
So we're gonna have a surplus of three million something.
That's the current projected operating surplus, yes. And we'll get into some of the things that are contributing to that in the next couple pages here. The biggest single piece of that is right at the top of the next page is the increased transfer tax.
Yeah.
That has been something that has been experienced across the province over the last year and 3/4 or so. I've actually included a little graph on page 5 at the bottom that shows kind of a 10-year history of the transfer tax by quarter. So you can see each of the colored lines represents a quarter of the year. The blue line across the middle represents the budget, which is a trailing 3-year average for each year. And you can see in the 2021 fiscal year, that was a significant increase beginning in Q2. And that trend has continued strongly, and in fact, even more so through this fiscal year.
Well, everything's selling.
I know.
Yeah, prices are up, volume is up, properties are selling, and that is having a significant impact. So far this year, the projection for the year end is deep transfer tax being about 1.15 million above budget. So a significant increase over budget there.
I know it doesn't help with our budget accuracy, but I'm not worried about that.
The problem.
It is, but you worry that people are buying the houses and either they're just investment homes and they're not being occupied, those things.
Different issue for sure.
That is an issue, but I mean, I know we can't control that, but
People are allowed to buy.
yeah, if they're living here, that's one thing, but if they're just, I mean, we
Well,
all the
they-
summer homes in
Well,
Chester.
they hit legislation, or the conservatives are passing legislation for non-residents that are buying, isn't that
Well,
a big issue?
yeah, it is.
From what I understand,
Yeah.
they're gonna have a higher
Well,
taxes, yeah. I don't know if that's passed yet or not.
no, it is not.
It's not, it's a
No.
big issue, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, the deep transfer tax trend, it's hard to, nobody's gonna say we're gonna keep seeing that type of growth going
No.
forward in the years. It may be a blip, it may plateau, it's very difficult to project. I'm certainly not a real estate economist of any sort. But it does sort of indicate long-term gains in assessed value, right? Every time a property sells, they lose the cap, they go back to assessed value.
Yeah.
And with the increased prices, that'll impact the assessed values as well. So there will be long-term impacts from that potentially short-term trend. On the expenditure page, I'm not going to go through each of these explanations here. You can kind of see a consistent note of temporary staffing vacancies. We have been experiencing, as a lot of organizations have, turnover, vacancies, recruitment and retaining staff has been an ongoing concern for everyone, really, not just us. And so that leads to reduced spending on salaries and wages, as well as reduced spending on the types of projects that those positions would carry there. One particularly significant item in the lower cost than expected would be Sustained Technologies operations at the landfill. I should update, there's a number in here, it says 765,000, that's not accurate, it should say 1.02 million, $1,020,000. That was the budgeted cost for Sustained operations this year, and as of now, we're projecting close to zero for that actual, so that's another significant driver of variance.
That's our cost or something.
That was a projected cost for the fees that we would pay to Sustain for accepting or diverting the waste.
If they've been fully operational, it would cost us that much more.
That we pay them a price per ton for the waste that they take out of our landfill or divert from our landfill.
And it's shared cost.
Oh, yes, it's maybe all, yeah, it's more complex than just the 1 point.
Yeah, and that is shared, and so there's an impact to the revenue side as it relates to down waste and their portion of the. The next page, which I already sort of talked about a little bit, I jumped around a bit. The reserve balances or contributions, you can see that all of them, or all of them presented here, are slightly higher contribution than was budgeted.
Page one?
I'm on page 5 right now.
This little green one here.
Yeah, you can see that the contributions to reserves are consistently slightly higher than budget, some of them more than this as a proportion. When you combine the additional contributions to reserve and the projected variance, that actually shows a favorability of about $3.75 million on the year. So that's operating favorability plus increased reserve contributions. Essentially, that's your kind of overall growth in reserves at year end once we close everything out. Above budget. Then there's that deep transfer tax table that I talked about already. And then the last page here is your capital budget forecast for 2021. The projected variances significantly due to the delays in the approval of funding for the ICIP. Those projects have all been sitting on hold until we hear back from the federal government whether they approve the funding. Some other pieces with significant variances would be the leachate treatment plant upgrade. That phase 2 has been deferred likely into the 23-24 fiscal year. And then some savings on purchase of an excavator is less than was budgeted, as well as some other projects that are being deferred to the next fiscal year, such as the Milco biofilter unit and fire protection system construction and design. That is basically high level Q3 update for the financial finance department. And if there's any questions, that would be a great time.
Questions, people? Pretty straightforward, really. Okay, it's good that there aren't any because we only have 10-12 minutes to finish up the agenda, or we have to go into the audit, I guess. So 8.4 capital budget discussions.
Yeah, so the next item here is the 5-year capital budget. This is a preliminary budget. It essentially is an update to what exists as current, an update to timing, cost estimates, etc. For those items. There are some pieces that you will see come at a later date that would be incremental in addition to this budget. Those would include any work on the wastewater strategy planning, any recent or upcoming changes to the strategic priorities, such as perhaps the parade square, the industrial park, Wake Up Hill. There will likely be a small piece to adjust after year end for any projects that are currently ongoing where we expect to be complete by year end, but if there are any portions that aren't quite complete, we can carry forward, there will be some small additions to that. And then there will be some discussions around the ICIP stuff. There are a couple of projects that are included in the request for funding there, which will have other implications. You know, if that funding were not to come through, there may be a desire to continue that regardless, and there would be some further discussions on how to fund that. The one thing that's changed, I think, most significantly in cost from the last time you would have seen it here is the landfill design and construction. So the budget there for this coming fiscal year is just over 4.1 million. That's based on the most recent consultant or engineering report we received from CBCL with the most recent estimate of cost there, including net HST, as well as a small piece for the inspection services during construction.
Questions, people?
Questions or essentially what we're asking now is to approve the pieces that as they're presented here or to provide modifications to that. There, as I said, there will be other pieces coming from the capital budget for those items that I mentioned. However, it is important to have these things approved officially so that when we're presenting our capital investment plan to the province, they require that we have that been approved through council. So for the time being, we're asking that either to modify or approve what is presented here as the initial capital budget.
Somebody prepared to do that?
Also move.
Seconder?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
I'll stop.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
I just don't wanna, I don't want to be locked into this here, you know, because I don't think we've had 10 minutes to talk about this.
No. Well, one thing's for sure, and that's the whole sewer issue will be added at some future point once we decide what we're
Yeah,
gonna
there's a whole lot that we actually haven't really had much, I'm not feeling real comfortable about approving this as is. We crammed this in the last 10 minutes with a 5-minute discussion. No. This is too much too fast. I think there's a lot of information here that we need to chat about.
To continue discussion, yeah, I kind of just in kind of an awe for a second. The Gold River Bridge is a big piece for me in terms of that and planning and around all that. And remind me, if you would, the landfill piece of 4.1 million, that's a current piece of information you had said from CPCL or something. What was it before, Tim? I don't remember, I'm sorry.
The number of, sorry, I don't have it right here in front of me. It was 3.4, I think, was the last capital budget from last year at 3.4 million. That's the estimate.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, the way
Yep.
costs and inflation
Of
are
course.
going, that's
Yeah.
where we're at now with the most recent estimate.
I understand all of that, but still, it's just a bit of a, just a bit of a taking back for a second. So yeah, I'm certainly on that fence with Andre, with Councilor Vino around just letting it digest a bit, maybe give further discussion and deliberation and just roll up our sleeves a bit as part of some of those planning sessions.
Well, I just didn't hear anything at first. And
I know, that's,
Yeah, and so I would support more discussion and more content being provided to council on the capital budget. I know it's important to get things locked in for our capital improvement plan, but I would support a little more time and a little more information to council on the projects.
Well, I know that I just assumed we would alter it based on this, particularly the sewage set.
I would recommend receiving it today.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm fine, I just didn't hear anybody say anything. So.
Yeah, and I should add that the required approvals for provincial submissions, that's not an immediate deadline. That's
Okay.
something we need to get to.
So why
It's
don't we
not
try
something
your
we get
motion?
this week or next week.
Yes. Your motion is just received. Okay, we've received it. Thank you. We'll have a further discussion.
thank you.
Okay, so there is no new business. So we have in camera. Do we have time for in camera or do I have to wait until after the?
Well, my presentation will take about 5 minutes, and then it all depends on how quickly you.
Let's do in camera after the audit committee.
The auditors are not on.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break and then